Yay!
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Your Worth, Your Beauty, the podcast for 1035 Clothing, where we hear from women all around the world who are clothed in confidence, dignity, and worth.
We're your hosts, Victoria and Angie, and we're so glad you're here. Today we have Kristy Edwards with us. Kristy is the founder of Neatly Balanced Home Organization. Kristy not only organizes your space, but she finds a home for those items that find a new life at nonprofits all over Middle Tennessee. Kristy has been a friend of 1035 from the beginning, and we are really excited to chat with her today. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with fashion. I've got some questions that we'll get your feedback on. Summer fashion trends, best and worst trends of 2025. What do you think about red light therapy?
I think it's super beneficial. I've only done it once or twice, and I've had it added onto facials I've gotten, and I feel like you can see a benefit to it immediately. So I think it's great. Supposedly it enhances like collagen reproduction. And I think it's supposed to help with anti-aging as well, which we all probably need, but I'm not an expert on it, but I was told it's supposed to help with collagen reproduction. So I'm all about that.
Is it a warm sensation when you have the red light?
Anything, no.
Okay.
You just put like the goggles you used to wear when you would do like sunless tanning beds in high school. Yeah. You wear the little goggles, but then it's just, for me anyway, it was almost like a tunnel thing that went over my face. And it wasn't like the masks that you see that lays on your face. It was more of like a tunnel thing. And I just laid there for like 10 minutes. Yeah.
So it doesn't look like
I've seen the masks, but the one
like the white mask. It wasn't like that. Oh,
no.
okay.
That's all. Sweet.
Yeah.
What about AI and beauty? We're thinking all things Photoshop.
Yeah.
So if you could take an item and put it on a fake model.
I'm trying to come around to the AI thing. I was not a huge fan at the beginning, but I can see the benefits, especially when it comes to social media and business relations. Like I can see how it would be helpful. I just don't I think our world is so Instagram perfect that I don't want to take away the realness. And I don't know. I like seeing someone how they really look versus just all, touched up and flawless. And I just don't think it really is an accurate depiction. So I don't know. I guess it's kind of in the middle. I can see pros and cons.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any thoughts on AI and beauty?
Well, that's what I was telling Angie. We were talking about it before you came in I feel like Hollywood, the trend is so, I feel like people are turning into their AI version in real life. Like they look like robots. They look like too picture perfect and too much filler, too much plastic surgery, all this stuff. So I don't know. I'm a fan of just aging.
Yeah.
Just aging like we should be allowed to age. The British people do it. Yeah. It's only in the U.S. It's like we became very anti-aging of I think we worship youth here in our culture. So I think that's what's going on.
I've never done Botox, and I'm starting to see little lines around my eyes, and I'm like, I don't know, should I? But I kind of like looking normal. I was like, if this is me, I'm trying my best to.
Yeah, I like to think too, every line has a story to tell. So you're like, this is life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, last fashion question. What's something you put on when you need a pick-me-up?
Mascara and lip gloss.
Oh, sweet.
Because I'm not a big makeup wearer. Normally, this is like really done up for me. Normally, I'd never wear makeup at all. So yeah, like if my husband and I are going to go out, or if I'm going to meet like a girlfriend for lunch, I usually will swipe on a little bit of lip gloss and just mascara. And I'm always like, oh, hey, I look so alive. But then for outfits, it's definitely high heels. Okay. I have heels on now. I wear heels.
Your heels are cute.
And thank you. I wear heels all the time. If I'm not organizing, I'm usually in heels.
Yeah. Next, we're going to go a little bit deeper. Okay. So just tell us about your journey with confidence. Was there a time in your life that it was more difficult than others to be reminded of your worth and just do that daily?
Oh yeah. How deep do you want me to go? I mean, pretty much my whole life until, I mean, seriously, probably 2 or 3 years ago is when I started to be like, oh, I think people care.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, my whole life I was always like, I don't really feel like if anyone cares. I mean, my mom and dad, like my family, but I mean, yeah, I went through a lot of breakups, not just in like boyfriends, but with friends. Um, I've been very deeply hurt by every single female friend I've ever gotten close to. So, and then also had a couple pretty serious heartbreaks in relationships before I met my now husband. So, yeah, I think I sort of adapted this mentality of like people always leave, so why care, kind of. And yeah, it's probably been in the past 3 or 4 years when I started doing like a lot of really deep work, and started therapy that I sort of was like, oh, I think people might actually care a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's been pretty recent.
Did you, was there a go to, or maybe over the last couple of years, like you mentioned, that has helped you stay grounded in reminding you of your confidence and worth? Or do you feel like over time it's just gotten easier because you know who you are?
I think both. I think both a little bit. Starting my business, starting Neatly Balanced back in 2020, sort of, I was the founder. I was the entire company until a little almost two, not quite 2 years ago. So for the first 3 years, I was sort of like, if it fails or if it succeeds, it's all on me, and like humanistically speaking, and it made me very much be like, oh, I have to care. I have to make this happen. I have to get out of bed every day and put one foot in front of the other, whether it's a good day or a bad day, because it's all on me. And yeah, that was when I started to feel a little bit more grounded. But then personally speaking, yeah, it was probably right around the time I got married. Yeah, I started, like I said, my husband and I together and myself, started doing therapy and started journaling a lot more. I've journaled kind of off and on my whole life, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I got really intentional and serious about it. And that was when I started to see complete healing from a lot of different things happen. And when I started feeling like, just, I don't know, like I sort of found my voice in more ways than one, and wasn't afraid to use it.
Yeah.
I tried really hard to use it for good, but I think I probably burned some bridges along the way just by being outspoken about multiple things. But up until then, I was very much a doormat and very much like got railroaded again by people, by jobs, by friends, all of the above. And I was just sort of like, well, I'm a Christian, and that means you just don't say anything and you just turn the other cheek and it doesn't matter, everything's fine. And a few years ago, suddenly I was just like, no, I have a voice and my voice matters. And we don't have to agree, but like your opinion is just as important as my opinion. And if you're free to share yours, why can't I also share mine? And again, I try to do it in love, but I think certain people are more receptive than others, again, across a whole plethora of subject matter. Um, but yeah, I definitely started using my voice more then, and it helped with the healing for sure.
Yeah.
When you were learning those things, because it's interesting what you say about like being a Christian and how it can be really hard to understand like where to have boundaries because we are taught to be like loving and kind. And so how did you start to like find your voice in that? Like, was there a pattern that like going through therapy you found and identified, and you were able to like work with your therapist and the Lord on like how to uncover that or
Yeah,
break
that's
a
good.
cycle or anything like that?
Yeah, and I think that's part of why I was like, how deep do you want me to go? Yes, there were several really, really dark, deep things that I went through as an adolescent, um, that literally no one knew until about 4 years ago. And I had buried those really deep down inside and never even told my family. And it was completely steeped in, well, I'm a Christian and this doesn't happen to Christians and we don't really ever deal with problems. We just sweep everything under the rug and smile and say Jesus loves you. And that was how I was raised and how I lived my whole life. And then yeah, when I finally sort of hit rock bottom and started therapy, in fact my therapist said, you should write a book. And she said, no one ever has to read it unless you want them to. But I think getting all of these feelings that you have held inside for 20 years or more deserve to be at least on paper for you. And then if you want to share it, you can. And if not, at least that's like a way of freedom for you. And that was really when a lot of the healing, both internally with myself and decisions and choices I had made in the past, as well as people that were in my life previously and people that were in my life now, sort of all kind of came together and found healing. And I started, feeling better.
Yeah.
And yes, it was definitely because of like, it was a very, what's the word? Kind of disjointed relationship with the Lord. I felt like he was, for a long time in my life, I felt like he was kind of this, like I knew him as a father, but kind of like the song said, I knew him as a father, but I did not know him as a friend. I felt like he was this judgmental, person in the sky that was everything bad that happened. Well, it was because of choices I made, or it was because I didn't do the right thing in that situation. And 5 or 6 years ago, I really sort of met him as a friend for the first time. And that was when a lot of the healing started taking place.
You mentioned journaling. Do you feel like, I mean, I guess similar to the possibility of writing a book to getting your thoughts on paper, do you feel like part of it was releasing and maybe owning those thoughts to be able to, like, once you write them down, they're there for you to see? Do you feel like, it sounds like that was a big part of your healing journey of, seeing them and owning them in a way?
It was. And also, I mean, the book isn't finished. It's still a work in progress. I constantly keep going back and tweaking things or taking things out or adding things. But when I got to the place where, at that moment anyway, I felt like it was finished for that time, I took it and gave it to my mom. And I said, here's 20 years worth of stuff that you have no idea about me. And I feel like I'm healed enough that I'm ready to possibly share this with the world, and maybe releasing and publishing the book one day, or doing speaking engagements, or helping, adolescents that are for sure dealing with things that I went through that I didn't feel like it was okay to talk about. And now I feel like it is okay to talk about, but it's not fair for anyone else to know this before you do. So I gave it to my mom and I was like, read this. And then when you finish reading, we can talk about anything you want to talk about. And boy, did we talk.
Oh, yeah.
And then I let my sister read it and a couple other close friends. But yeah, that for sure, it helps in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, it was getting them out, but it was also sharing it with people that I felt like I had kept really big secrets from. I felt like that was a lot of the healing too.
Yeah.
Letting them sort of know things and like why I reacted in certain ways that at the time they thought I was just being really difficult. And I was like, no, it was a trigger. Like, this brought up painful things from the past. So yeah.
I think too, as we navigate further into a world that we're talking about, like AI and beauty, like where we're supposed to be visually, perfect, but there's more and more that we need to be talking about with people that we trust and that we can, partner with to say, these are the things I'm struggling with, because we're definitely struggling more with those than we ever have, but it just seems impossible to talk about. Do you recommend, was there someone, I guess during that time, it sounds like it was your mom at some point, but looking back, who would have been someone that you felt like you could talk to during that time that you maybe chose not to? Do you feel like it's seeking out someone, a professional, or sharing those things with a friend, or just anybody you can trust? Do you feel like is helpful?
I think everybody needs someone that they can trust, for sure. I think that's important. And I think for me, it was several different people. Yeah. When I finally shared everything with my mom, of course, she was open armed and cried and hugged me and, assured me of her love and all the things that moms do. But it was really he was my boyfriend at the time, and now we're married. But it was through the death of a family member that was very tragic and sudden, that no one saw coming, due to an addiction issue, that really made me open up to him. And I sort of shared what she had gone through, which then resulted in me sharing things that I had gone through that were completely unrelated, but just still kind of a similar path and all based on choices. And he was very much just accepting and, okay, well, that just makes you human. Like, there's nothing wrong with you, So yeah, it was definitely him. And I think even in the face of tragedy, it brought us closer together and it solidified our relationship more. So yeah, very much. I mean, my husband is my best friend, but in that moment, I think is when I realized he was, and we were just dating at the time.
Okay. Oh, so the person you talked to then was your husband. Okay,
My
now husband,
at
yeah.
the time we were just dating. Yeah,
Okay.
he was the one I really opened up to and shared and was just like, I think I need to get back into therapy. I think I need to start journaling. And he was just like, whatever helps, like you do you.
Yeah. Can you share what journaling looked like for you? Was this like a daily, like, let me just write down my thoughts that I've experienced today?
When I started, I pulled out a journal that I had started back in, I think it was '05 or '06. And I got, not even a quarter of the way through it. And life kind of happened and I quit journaling. And when I decided to start journaling again, I was like, I think I have a book somewhere. And I pulled it out and started reading all this stuff. And it's very all over the place. Some entries look like poems. Some entries are just Bible verses. Some entries are 7 pages long. Some entries are just like, life sucks. I mean, it's literally all over the board. But yeah, I think that was what was so integral or pivotal for me at that point was just write something. And it doesn't have to be eloquent. And I went back and was like, man, I misspelled that word or that wasn't the right word. But in that moment, it was just like coming out faster than I could get it down. Yeah.
That's good. Have you ever journaled?
I journal a lot. I think that's how I process a lot of life is how it's writing. But yeah, I had a question about, I think it's so interesting what you said about like it was some things from childhood or like in the past that you were dealing with and like getting to the root of that. And I think so often in my journey with the Lord, a lot of stuff that I don't even understand why I'm reacting certain ways is because of something that happened in my childhood or like a sense of abandonment or something like that. And it will go like the Lord will take me back to a memory or a person or whatever. But I'm just curious on like if someone's listening to this and they're afraid of going back because it feels too traumatic, they don't want to uncover that stuff. What would you say to that person of like the value of going back to that with the Lord?
Something that someone said to me, she said, and I may not get it perfect, but it was something to the effect of, let your test become your testimony. And she was like, it might be hard and it might take a really long time to work through, but it's kind of like what people say, let your mess become your message. It was kind of just a play on that. But she said, in the Christian world, God will test you, but a lot of times that test can become your testimony. So she was just like, she just encouraged me. She goes, sit in it. And it may be hard. It may be painful, but it's kind of like the superficial cut. Like typically if you cut yourself, it hurts, but eventually there's a scar and the scar doesn't hurt, but the scar is there to remind you of the hurt. And for me, that's what all of that stuff became was, okay, it's really hard, but let's go back and let's think through all this. And in some instances, talk about it. In some instances, journal about it. In some instances, write this, book I'm working on. But it was very much kind of go back and revisit all the pain to realize why I reacted in certain ways that I did. And in a lot of ways, it's encouraged me to use my voice and be more outspoken now because I'm like, you know what? I might make one person mad, but what if I save 2 people's lives by saying, this is really hard, but you need to hear this. And I'm a big believer in what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. And again, that can be attributed to multiple different subject matters. But, I remember even one time a lady that I actually met with in my church for counseling, I told her, I said, I don't think he would mind me saying this. My now husband, when we were dating, he was a Christian, but he wasn't really living for the Lord because he had no like upbringing in that life. So we had a lot of questions. And I can remember when we were dating, he would always be like, do you want to go have a drink? And I was like, well, I'm not really supposed to be in a bar because that can ruin my testimony. But every single time that I would go with him and we would get a drink, we weren't getting drunk. But after a drink, he would loosen up. And then he started asking me about God and questions about Christianity. And I told this lady in my church, I was like, it really convicted me because I was like, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about being in the world, but not of it. And I was like, I realize there are a lot of Christians that think drinking is this horrible sin and it's terrible. And I'm not trying to say that we should all become drinkers, but I was like, for my husband, it was because I was willing to meet him where he was in that moment. And for him, he needed to have a drink to feel like he could be a little bit more comfortable to ask questions that for him felt very uncomfortable to ask. And I said, all I think about now is if I had refused to go to the bar with him and sit and have a drink, would we be here? Because would he have ever asked me any of those questions? And so I think it's really important to meet people where they're at and then show them the love of God and get them potentially out of whatever situation may not be healthy for them. But, it's I think there's a lot of churches now that are like, wear a hat, wear shorts, wear flip-flops to church. And I mean, when I was a kid, that was so bad. Like nobody did that. And now I'm just like, that's just meeting them where they are. And if that's what they need to come to church for the first time, who am I to tell them that that's not allowed, So I just try to remember that.
Basically like getting out of religion, getting into relationship.
It's about a relationship. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think if you dive into the stories in the Bible where we talk about religion and, and Jesus setting a different tone, let's lead with love and kindness instead of, those things. Like you said, we're supposed to wear suits to church. Nobody said that. Yeah.
Well, and Jesus was always hanging out with the sinners, like I feel like if there were bars in the Bible days, Jesus would have gone into the bars. Because it's like the verse that says, like who needs a doctor? It's not the healthy, it's the sick. So you can't expect a non-Christian to act like a Christian because they're not. So how are we going to meet them and how are we going to, help save them if we're not going to where they are?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because we're talking about beauty and everything. Like one of the women in the Bible who Jesus actually says she's done a beautiful thing is the woman who was a sinful woman. She came and just like cried at his feet.
Yeah.
And Jesus called that beautiful. And it's so interesting, like what we call beautiful in our world today is like these perfect like Instagram grids and whatever. Yeah. But it's actually when Jesus defines beauty, it's someone who's broken. It's someone who is willing to just like come to his feet and say like, I need you. And
sure.
That's
good.
Yeah.
When I do speaking engagements, which I do sometimes, and I have enough time to share my story, there's usually a couple songs that I put in and sing. I'm not like Celine Dion, but I can carry a tune. But I say there's a couple songs that really I gravitated to in my healing journey and in the past few years when I have felt more healed. And it's funny because both of them sort of in their own way go back to the story that you were talking about. One is by Natalie Grant called Clean. And the chorus just talks about there's nothing too dirty that he can't make worthy. And so I've always loved that song and I've always gravitated to that song. Like there's no mistake that you can make that's too big that's going to make him be like, oh, forget it. Never mind. You're too lost. And the other one is a song by Point of Grace called Heal the Wound. And it says heal the wound, but leave the scar. And the scars that are like I said a minute ago, the scars that are remind you of the pain and of the wound, but the wound eventually heals. So those are two songs that I also reference in my conversations with other people about Jesus.
Okay, now we're going to lighten it up a bit. Okay. We're going to talk about some slay or nay options. Okay. Of course, slay if you love it, nay if you hate it. Bermuda shorts.
Probably a nay.
Is it the pleats?
It can be.
Okay. Yeah. Is there anything about them that you don't like, or is this just?
I think it's just more of a connotation. When I hear Bermuda shorts, I think of, like older men on Key West that just aren't super hip.
Skirts over pants?
No. Skirts over? Yeah, over?
Yeah.
No.
I haven't seen it.
Nay.
But this is what came up as a 2025 summer trend.
Huh.
Yeah.
I haven't seen someone walking down the street like this, but maybe it's not in the Southeast.
For sure. And I kind of feel like there's somebody sitting in an office that decides, like, these people are going to look ridiculous when they do this thing. So let's push it out there and see if we can get any traction. Like that. Like, why do we need that? But it's whatever. Laced mini dress.
A laced mini dress?
Mini. Oh, yeah. Either one.
Oh, yeah. No, I like that. That's slay.
Okay, last one. Skinny jeans.
Forever a slay. I'm a skinny jean girl to the end.
Yeah. Did you ever venture out to any of the other options, the mom jean or the boyfriend?
No,
the flare?
I still have all of those other styles of jeans in my closet, and maybe I'm not super hip or cool, but I still wear them. But my favorite and my go-to is the skinny jean for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's it. We are so thankful for you and you sharing and having a little fun. Oh, just kidding. This has been another episode of Your Worth, Your Beauty. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook at 1035 Nashville, and YouTube at 1035.stories.
And don't forget to join us for our June 1st fashion show in Madison, Tennessee. Tickets are available now, and it's one of our biggest fundraisers of the year to show off our beautiful clothes and meet some of our wonderful staff. Thanks for joining us.